Welcome back to Two Views, One Book. It's been a while. Took us a minute. It was Kendall's pick, and so he really likes the Sword of Shannara series by Terry Brooks. And I tried to read the first one. Well, I don't even, what was it?
The Sword of Shannara.
And I couldn't do it. It was too slow, too much exposition. There wasn't anything happening, and I just don't care for books like that. I can appreciate them, like I understand people that do like them and appreciate that character development and the setting development and all of that, but I could not do it. So Kendall graciously said that I may skip it, and then we went on.
I'll say about the Sword of Shannara, of that trilogy, it's my least favorite of the trilogy. It is exposition heavy, especially in the beginning. I kind of try to give you a fair warning of that in advance, but
experiencing it, the warning did not compare to the experience.
And I think with that story too, there's pieces of it that go into the second book, but it's not as important to the second book as it could be, I guess. I mean, there's a few characters that come over, but otherwise, starting with the second one, the Elfstones, is a good way to go.
I mean, I don't know where you want to start with it.
Okay,
but I know you kept trying to get me to talk about it before it was time to talk about it.
And you kind of did the same thing with me in the other series as well. You were wanting me to drop little hints here and there.
I don't know if you just want me to give an overview. I don't. What do you want? I know
we always had the same issue every time. Let's just start with the Elfstones. What's your general overall feeling of it?
I liked it. There were parts of it I really liked. There were parts of it, like the fighting scenes, that aren't interesting to me. So I would skim and scan those, and I feel like I got the main idea and the point. Like, even going into like the Elf War, you know what's going to happen. You know that they're going to be almost defeated, and that they're going to figure out how to lock them back up in whatever all of that is called. So you know that they're going to almost lose, and then they're going to be saved. So I did not feel like I needed to read every single fight scene, because the fight scenes don't really interest me. And there were other things that that I really did like. Like, a couple of times I was reminded of Lord of the Rings, and a couple of times I was reminded of even Harry Potter. And so I really could see how some of the other things I have read are fantasy, and how the genre, like, I don't know, fits together, how things come to be in that genre. I don't really know how to explain that, but I was able to make a lot of connections with other things I've seen and read, too, so.
Okay. Now, you were saying specifically the fighting scenes that you didn't seem to truly enjoy. Was that specifically the army battle, or the individual fights that Will had? Or Will traveling with the Elven...
I read those.
Okay.
Those were interesting. It was specifically the army battles. And I don't know if we're getting into it. Like, I guess we are.
A little bit,
but
yeah. We can get into it.
What was the name of the... Oh, Lord. Ski, what was his name? He came to join the Elven army from the...
Ski Jans.
Yes, I really liked his character, and really liked him and his strategy, and how, like, the king, the prince who wasn't going to be the king, who became the king, like, how he was standing above and could see it all happen. Like, I guess I had a greater appreciation of like battle strategy because of how he could see it and how it was described, how he could see it looking down on it. So some of it was interesting, but yes, for the most part, I skimmed and scanned the army parts.
Okay.
But no, I read all of the, like when Will first set out with the Elven army or whatever they were, like those 5 characters or 5.
Oh, the Home Guard?
Yes.
Elven Home Guard. Okay.
I read all of that. That was kind of cool, actually, how they kept disappearing. Like some of that, the scenes, like you could really see it.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I did like about Terry Brooks and the way his style of writing is a little easier to read. It's, but yeah, it's descriptive, but not over the top descriptive on things.
I would argue with that, but.
Well, those are sorry. So, yeah, I mean, I guess some places are a little over descriptive as well. But let's start off with the start of the story here. How do you think it kicked off? Did you think it kicked off all right, or?
I thought it kicked off really strong. Like I was really invested pretty early on with how they explained the Elven Kingdom and the Elcris tree and how it was dying.
Elcris, I believe, something like that.
And the Chosen and explaining that. Like it took me maybe a little bit longer than normal to get into it, but I thought it was pretty good from the beginning for me.
Okay. So it did draw you in pretty early?
Yes.
Okay.
Like I was interested and wanted to keep reading. It was slow going because it's a bigger book than I typically read. So it was slow going, but I did like what I was reading.
Okay. So then as that story progressed and he went and met Will and brought Will in and they went and got Amberly, what was your first feelings on Amberly?
I guess my feelings were like kind of like her family's feelings. Like she just abandoned them, and like I tried to understand her point of view, but of course they don't give you all the information up front. Like I tried to understand why she was scared, and I kind of just felt like she was running away from her responsibility, which
she was.
She was, but I couldn't, like, I kind of could relate to her, I guess. Like, I don't know, but I also was like, your people are going to die if you don't come back. And she was even reluctant knowing that. So I think at first I was kind of angry with her. And she kind of reminded me of the Princess and the Bride. Like, she was kind of really bossy at first and really, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you're supposed to like her at first.
I don't think you are. Maybe sympathize with her a touch with what she's going on, but they don't really explain to you exactly what caused her to get to that point. Yes. So it seems kind of like she's being overly
dramatic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like a teenager.
Yeah.
You know, and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I was not a fan of her through most of the book, actually. It took a while to finally warm up to her. It wasn't until probably 2/3 of the way through the book you start warming up to her a bit more, and her belief structure, I guess, was very heavily based on the elves and giving back to the land and all that. So I didn't quite I understand it, but it's not.
Yeah, it wasn't for me.
Wasn't that great either. So I guess for the basic plot of the story, so the demons were breaking free in the beginning.
Yes.
And I guess did you enjoy how tactical they were in what they did?
No.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but
like the part of the story I enjoyed.
You didn't realize what a critical strike it was at the beginning to kill the Chosen.
No, I did. That part was fine. Like, I was like, oh, this is a really big deal. Like, this is the exposition. This is how the plot is going to start. Okay. Like, I recognized that. But I guess I didn't really get into the story. Like, I could appreciate that, I guess. But the first part I really remember liking was when Will and Amberly first set off. and they were hiding in the woods, and they met the people with the wagons. With the
Rovers.
Yeah, when they met the Rovers. That was the first scene that I really was like, oh, well, this is kind of interesting. Like, more characters talking to each other and, like, dialogue and learning about characters that way. Like, that's kind of what I like when I read, and so that fit really well into what I like.
Okay. I guess let's talk about some characters specifically. What were your thoughts on Al-Anon?
Okay, I don't know anything about druids. Like, I've heard the word druid before, but I don't really know what a druid is, and I know you do know what a druid is. He needed to do what he needed to do to have the outcome he needed. So he is like a master manipulator. I don't know if that's a characteristic of a druid, and I should have already known that, but he gave people enough information and told them the story he needed to tell to get them to do what they needed to do.
Yes. That is basically an ongoing thing throughout the stories.
Like, I think I remember that from the first book, too.
The first book, he was doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, to Will's grandfather, uncle?
Shay Omsford, which was his dad, I thought. Or no, it was
either his uncle or his grandfather.
He's directly related to Shay. Flick was his uncle.
Oh, okay.
So, but anyways, so I guess that would make him the son. So he's the son of Shay. But anyways, so that was something that happened in the first book too. Al-Anon would do that, and they really humanized Al-Anon at the end, saying, yeah, I didn't know if you had the strength of character to go through and do what you did, so I didn't necessarily deceive you, but I didn't give you the whole truth.
He basically did the same thing in this book too.
Did the same thing again here. So, because, I mean, it is true with a lot of things with that you have to discover some of these things by yourself. If you would have told him straight out of the beginning, I don't know if I would have done it. Like, hey, this is what's going to have to happen. And, like, that's a big pill to choke on.
Yeah.
So, so there was Al-Anon. I really enjoy him quite a bit, actually. His, wielding of magic and all that, I think is really cool. Of course, I would think that was cool. Mm-hmm. And not just him having the knowledge and information, but he also seemed like a pretty smart guy overall as well.
Oh, I agree. He almost seems like an all-knowing character.
Correct.
Like he's, what do you call that?
Omnipotent.
Yeah.
Yes. So there was that. We mentioned briefly Steve Jans. He's the man.
I really liked his character a lot. What was the name of the group he was with?
The Free Corps.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, just the idea of that group is also pretty interesting as well.
I thought so too. Like they were.
I mean, it was like the Wall and Game of Thrones.
Yes.
So,
yes.
But you go into it knowing what you're getting into, and you face it without fear. So I thought that was pretty cool. Andrew Adethel, he was kind of a weaker character, but he did kind of.
Yeah, he was kind of a weenie and a whiner.
Yeah.
But then he couldn't be.
Yep, and then he came into his own as well and grew into that. Were there any good highlights of the book? Like any parts of the book that you really truly enjoyed? Like you're like, oh man, I read that and that was so cool.
Gosh. When Will talked to the head rover guy, I can't remember his name.
His name is spelled really weird. Cafello or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Both times he talked to him to negotiate, like the first time to get his horse back, and the second time when he wanted the Elfstones from Will, and Will knew he wanted the Elfstones but wasn't sure how to like get around what he was wanting, and he still tricked Will anyway. Like I really found those scenes interesting and liked those. I liked when finally they realized that the demon was the dog, because there was like, they told you Right, that right when they said that there's a spy, they said an old Manx laying on the floor. I'm like, it's the dog. Like they tell you right there, and so you know that it's the dog. But finally, they realize it's the dog, and so that demon fight with the king was kind of cool. I did like when Will and the elven whatever troops were going and how they died off one by one. That was kind of a good spot too.
When they first stopped at that elven encampment, and they lost a couple there, and then they went to the
somewhere else, and
and then they were resting, and then they go out and like, oh, why are our guards dead?
Yes,
we gotta go.
That part was interesting. I really enjoyed. We say her name different, but the rover girl,
Eritrea.
Yeah. I really liked her character. She was just really bold and really smart and just knew what she wanted. She kind of reminded me of our daughter a little bit. I don't know. I really kind of liked her, and she just wanted to help Will. Like, she had a big crush on him and just wanted to help him out.
Yeah, she had a huge crush on him,
and it was, I mean, she didn't like split any hairs about it. It was very obvious she liked him and she wanted to help him, and so I
it's a good thing
that.
she liked him because he was also a means for her to get away from the rovers as well. So I mean, it all worked out pretty good. I would say some of the ones that I knew stand out to me. I loved the desperation that you could feel when Will and Amberly were trying to escape from the demon wolves on the horse. They kept the howls, kept closing in around them, and they kept charging.
The suspense that was built was pretty good.
So I really enjoyed that.
And then Al-Anon appears and saves them.
Yeah. And then also my favorite fight that happened, of course, would be the one where Will and the Reaper fought. I really enjoyed that quite a bit. So.
Oh, I didn't like that one because they hurt the dog. I was mad at the Reaper.
Well, he's not a nice guy.
Well,
what about Wiz? Did you feel bad for Wiz?
Oh, yes. He reminded me of Dobby from Harry Potter so much.
That's a fair statement.
But yes, then I felt bad for him. Then he went a little crazy and ran away and got unalived.
Got taken out pretty quick. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed that fight too. And there's a lot of good happenstances and coincidences that worked out in their favor. You know, the guy with the bird,
Lord of the Rings.
It was a perk, I believe it was, with the bird.
Yeah.
So they needed to run to him to be able to do it, and all that. So, did you see the fact that Amberly was going to have to give up herself to?
I didn't see that coming, but I have to admit I didn't think a lot about it. But I think I realized it about the same time they reveal it in the book that she was going to have to be the tree. But I was really sad. It made me really sad that her and Will were so weak and hurt at the end of that she wasn't able to really say goodbye to Will and to really explain it to him. Like, that made me really sad because they had really, like, fallen in love with each other, which is kind of cheesy.
It was.
But they had fallen in love with each other and they didn't get to say goodbye to each other. It just happened. It had to happen because they were hurt and they had to go so that they could lock the demons away. And so that made me sad, that piece.
It did. And then also when they got to where they were back to the tree and she was going to do her thing too, Will was too busy trying to defend her to...
Yes, and tried to, like, get off, because he was still injured, tried to get off the bird. He wasn't even off the bird yet, and she was down and going.
Yep, ain't no time to spare.
Yeah. So that part made me sad. That was one thing I didn't like about the ending, was that he didn't really get to understand what was happening. Like, he just thought she was leaving him. Like, he didn't understand what she was doing until it was already done, and I just thought that was sad.
Yeah. But in the end, I think Eritrea was a better choice.
I kind of hated how he ended up leaving with her. Like, she was second choice. I kind of didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of that, but...
Like, oh, you're here, so I'll go with you.
Well, she always said, I am for you, Will. So, I felt like that. I still like to. I think she was a better choice of the two, anyways, because she was a much stronger person.
Yeah, but Amberly was strong in the end. Like, she became the tree. She did what she needed to do to save her people.
Yeah, she saved the world.
Yeah. So I would argue that in the end she was strong when it mattered.
Yeah, I mean, that works as well. So the through line of everything with Al-Anon and the armies fighting here and Will and them down here doing their thing. Do you feel like there's anything they missed or they should have covered, or?
Oh gosh.
I mean, I feel like he did a good job writing the story, and excuse me.
I don't know. I didn't feel like I was going, I wonder about that. So no. I did wonder why this is called Book 1 and there's a book before it.
That's because of the MTV series.
Ooh, really? They renamed it Book 1 because it's the book that they started with?
Yes.
That's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know how they pull all that off, but hey, there you go.
Is that what we're doing next?
Well, we'll go to the next book. We need to do the Wish Song next, and then we were going to watch the MTV series associated with it and tell you guys about that, because
Kendall may need to do just a solo video about that.
No, I want you. I want your reaction on it. That's the whole point of this, because I want you to see and understand my feelings about it and see if you feel the same way.
Okay.
So
I won't, because I don't have the nostalgia factor with this series that you do.
It's fine, but I want to also discuss storylines and stuff with and the MTV series and compared to this book series.
Oh. Okay.
So there's
there's
more than just me being angry or unhappy about it, because
Nerd rage.
Not
Nerd
a fan
rage.
of the MTV series, just so you know.
You were not its target audience.
I was not.
Okay.
But I can't talk anymore about that, or things will start getting
Anything
spoiled.
else about this book?
I really enjoyed the book. As I said before, it's probably one of my favorite fantasy books.
I know fantasy is not even my favorite genre, so I feel like it took a lot for me to be able to read and finish this book, but I did enjoy it. I wouldn't pick it up and read it again. I'm not looking forward to reading the next one, but it was enjoyable.
Fair enough. That brings up an interesting talking point here, because you told me originally the last book series we read, the ACOTAR, A Court of Roses and Thorns, was your first dip into fantasy. That's what you mentioned?
But that's not true. After I read this book, I was like, I think Harry Potter was my first fantasy book.
Okay.
I think when I was little and when I first got into reading, like, I read like realistic fiction, like when I was younger.
Right.
And then I think my first fantasy was Harry Potter.
Okay. So I guess now you can see all the different versions and variations of it. You got your smutty fantasy, you got your more teenage angsty fantasy stuff, and you have
like,
this,
would you
which
call
kind of
this true fantasy?
I think this is still YA a bit. So.
I almost prefer sci-fi over fantasy at this point, I think, but.
No, sadness.
I know.
So, I guess on our 1 to 5 scale, what would you rate this book?
A 3.5. Like, it was okay. I wouldn't read it again. It's not my kind of book, but it was good. It was good. I can appreciate it.
Cool. I give it a 5, because I guess it's a nostalgia factor for me as well. This is one of the books that really got me into reading as well.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to continue doing that.
Okay.
And so I'm glad I could share this with you, and you can finally go, my husband's got poor taste in books.
No. I think it's a very personal preference. Like, it was a good book. I can appreciate why you like it. It is just not my kind of book, and that's okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, see you next time.
Well, we'll start doing the Wish Song next, and we'll come back with that review next time.
Okay.